Have you fallen into an open manhole recently? Do you find yourself in the company of strangers? Well, then you might very well be in the feature Underground. In spite of everything, my name is Hunter Lanier, and I come here today with something a little bit different in that it is not a review of an upcoming new movie release. It is the review of an upcoming home video release. I'm speaking, of course, of the new Russ Meyer Vixen Trilogy restoration and accompanying Blu-ray release from Severin Films. The aforementioned trilogy includes Vixen, exclamation point, Supervixens, and Beneath the Valley of the Ultravixens. All of which I have right here. Yes, I have props in this video. One big disclaimer that you might have noticed is that Severin Films sent me the regular old Blu-ray release and not the 4K release. This is entirely my fault because in my email I asked for the Blu-rays, not thinking I should have specified 4K Blu-rays. Oh well. Right out of the gate, let me confirm that these Blu-ray releases look fantastic. So I can only assume that if you're going to fork over the $50 for the 4K versions, they're going to look even better. Of these three movies, the only one that I had actually seen before was Vixen, which I watched many years ago on YouTube because YouTube used to have a lot of Russ Meyer movies. I don't know if they still do, but please wait until this video is over to check. But the YouTube versions that I watched were fuzzy and dull and had terrible audio. They looked very much akin to a public domain film that had spent an entire life cycle of being a frisbee, of being a hobo umbrella, and rolled out and used as floss. So when I popped in Vixen, I was surprised at how colorful and vibrant the colors were. And this carried on to the other two films as well. Suffice to say, this new release really does Russ Meyer a great service in that it shows how beautiful his skin flicks actually are. They do not look like scruffy exploitation movies. They look like Sunday comic strips. Now, for some people, that might actually be a problem. These sorts of exploitation movies from the 60s and 70s, a lot of their charm is actually in their grungy look, with all the hairs and the flickering and the rough edits. In fact, movies have been known to purposefully degrade their film reel in order to get that seedy, lived-in look, which isn't so much about the look as it is about not caring how you look. I know movies like Easy Rider and Pink Flamingos did that, and then of course Tarantino and all of the Tarantino copycats got really into doing that kind of stuff. That intentional degrading of the film reel, it's one of those things that's cool at first until they start selling the pre-ripped jeans at the mall, and like all things, it gets swept away by the mainstream. But really, in this case, Russ Meyer was such a better filmmaker than the rest of his sexploitation peers that I really do think his movies deserve to be seen at their best. And that's exactly what Severin Films has given us. As for the movies themselves, the question is usually the same. Do you have to be interested in ample-breasted women in order to enjoy these movies? Do they have any other value as art or entertainment, and/or entertainment? On both counts, I would argue they do, but of course to varying degrees. I think Vixen, which was released in 1968, is the best of the bunch. It's the least cartoonish and the most genteel, but it has the best characters, especially the black, draft-dodging, commie-hating Niles, played really well by Harrison Page. His contentious relationship with Vixen herself, played by Erica Gavin, breeds some of the most hilariously outlandish dialogue. You know he's a great character when Vixen, who is ridiculously open sexually, but George Wallace when it comes to race relations, she is just hurling racial epithets at poor Niles. And, you know, he's just letting them roll off his back. He's heard worse from scarier people. But then she calls him a coward. A coward for running to Canada to avoid going to Vietnam. And you see his expression change in an instant. His face drops. He is no longer anyone's friend. Afterward in the movie, there's a lot of titillation and comedy, but then that Vixen Niles relationship culminates in this climactic plane ride where Vixen's total Boy Scout clueless husband, who's the pilot, Niles, and an IRA terrorist, just don't think about it too much. They're all in this little claustrophobic plane together. The IRA terrorist reveals himself to be just that, puts a gun to the pilot's head, Vixen's husband's head, and tells him to take them to Cuba, which is a communist paradise, by using Vixen and America's racism as examples of why Niles should join him in Cuba and join the communist revolution. Vixen argues that in this guy's so-called communist paradise, some people will always be more equal than others. That's right, this movie that is mostly just funny, self-aware dialogue and pendulous breasts ends with this life or death, tense debate about politics and race, governments and individuals, capitalism and Cuban Marxism. And it's not like this debate in the movie is the most articulate, but it is plain spoken in a way that you're just not used to seeing in movies. Most of which are either too timid to say what they really want to say or too mired in metaphor. But one benefit of being so far outside of society's norms when it comes to sex and nudity is that you've already broken the sound barrier and can then subvert as many other norms as you'd like. Now, maybe this whole conversation and debate and scene only occurs because Russ Meyer anticipated issues with the FCC and wanted to make sure the movie had some societal value. Whatever the reason, I would argue that this scene is Russ Meyer at his very best. Before we get into the rest, I wanted to just very quickly pass the old hat into the audience. Throw in your likes, your subscribes, your comments, and any super thanks, tips you would care to throw my way. Though, of course, you have no obligation to do so. This is a grassroots operation entirely reliant on word of mouth. So if you have any family or friends unsatisfied with the current crop of mainstream film criticism and discussion, go ahead and send them down to the underground. Here I prioritize open-minded discussions and ideas rather than simple black or white verdicts. I am an enthusiast of all of film history, not merely genre films or art house films. Supervixens I like less than Vixen, and Beneath the Valley of the Ultravixens I like less than Supervixens. Even though it was co-written by Pulitzer Prize-winning film critic Roger Ebert, which is so funny to keep in mind as the movie is playing out. At one point, a guy catches another guy's dump into a shovel and then flings it over his shoulder so that when the guy turns around to check out his produce, it's not there. Was that Roger Ebert's idea? I would like to know. It's easy to forget that for all of Roger Ebert's high-minded, cerebral film writing, there was this impish side to him that always, in my opinion, prevented his writing from becoming the smug, monocle polishing sermons that plagued most of his contemporaries and continued to plague the film criticism scene today. Then you have all these young up-and-coming film buffs who want to fit in, so then they just parrot this smug tone. And then the whole film discussion scene turns into this performative college classroom of tryhards. But that's a rant for another time. All I'm saying is that Roger Ebert was incredibly smart and a fantastic writer, and could also enjoy naughty slapstick, and even write it. You can have your fancy chantilly cake and throw it in someone's face too. The tribe will not cast you into the wilderness for this behavior, and if they do, you didn't want to be a part of that tribe anyway. And of course, you can always come here to the Feature Underground. The reason Supervixens and Beneath the Valley of the Ultravixens don't work as well for me is that they really do ratchet up the comic strip element. I prefer Russ Meyer movies like Lorna, Faster Pussycat Kill Kill, Motorcycle, and Vixen, which still exist very much in a grounded reality and known cinematic language, which allows them to subvert those things in interesting ways and at will. Super Vixens and Ultra Vixens are so far outside of our reality in their own goofball reality that I think they lose something. My read on what happened here and why Russ Meyer's movies changed in this way is that he was reacting to the fact that in the 70s, hardcore porn actually became kind of mainstream with movies like Deep Throat, which had mainstream faces like Johnny Carson lining up at the movie theater to go see. All of a sudden, in this era, Russ Meyer's movies seemed tame by comparison. So even though Russ Meyer had no interest in making hardcore pornography, he still wanted to shock audiences. So his movies began reaching in this way. Whereas in the 60s, it seemed that he just wanted to make great movies about subjects that were of interest to him. And many of those subjects just happened to involve boobs. And on that note, Russ Meyer was a wartime photographer in World War II. So anyone who's maybe a little more on the prudish side, just know that this man shot the horrors of war. Let him come back to America and film as many naked ladies as he wants. Anyway, his original movies from the 60s that I think are his best, that they rubbed some people the wrong way, I think was a after effect and not the primary goal. But that's just my impression. All that said, I do think Super Vixens has some of Russ Meyer's funniest gags. There's a moment where Charles Napier, who plays the villain in the movie, tells the protagonist, played by Charlie Pitt, that he has to go to the bathroom. So naturally, he proceeds to walk toward what he thinks is the outhouse. But then Pitt stops him and, in such an earnest and deadpan way, says something like, "No, that's my house." There's also a great scene where Meyer takes the old rocking car gag to new heights. And by the way, Charles Napier, who plays the villain, is fantastic in the movie, especially in this insane Looney Tunes set piece that ends the movie, which is complete with a slowly burning fuse, a dynamite slingshot, and Roadrunner noises. Ultra Vixens has a lot of fun stuff in it too, although I have to say that Russ's trademarks, let's just say they go from practical effects to digital effects. In addition to preservation and not letting streaming services monkey with your movie, special features are one of the best reasons to get physical media. Severin Films has packed these 3 discs with over 9 hours of bonus features. That's a combined total between all 3. Now, I think that 9 hours does include the commentary tracks. While I did not listen to the commentaries, I did watch all of the other bonus features on the 3 discs. Nothing stands out as must-see, although the interview with Kitten Natividad, who is the star of Ultra Vixens, is the juiciest interview, if you're into that kind of stuff. There's also a really fun interview on the Super Vixens disc of Meyer doing a local Arizona talk show with a woman that looks very tightly wound. But then they have a more recent interview with this woman as she looks back on her talk with Russ, and she actually ends up being fairly laid back. There's not much with Ebert, although he does appear in a short documentary on the Vixen disc, I believe, where he talks about Russ's value as a filmmaker and some of their writing process on Ultra Vixens. Well, those are all my thoughts on this Russ Meyer restoration trilogy. It's always nice when these court jester type of movies get the royal treatment, like Severin Films has done with these. And I can't help but smile when I think of some of the shots in Ultra Vixens being stared at for hours while being methodically cleaned by trained professionals. Next up on the old review docket, I will be reviewing Presence, which is the new film from Steven Soderbergh. I'm seeing it this Thursday, so the review should be out early the following week. Until then, I am inclined to remind you, as always, that every day underground is a good day.
And one is bigger than the next. It's like a Russ Meyer movie. Who's Russ Meyer?
Oh, he's this guy who made these terrible movies in the 70s with these kinds of women. He's obsessed. He's obsessed with breasts. That's hard to say.